Today I'm going to give you my top 10 bourbons under $75. Let's do it. Welcome to Average Joe's Whiskey. My name is Joe. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a very exciting video for you today. The top 10 bourbons under $75. So I already put out a video, top 5 under 30, top 10 under 50. And now we are gonna do the top 10 under 75. So this is the price point where you really start to get some heavy hitters. So many great bottles in this $50 to $75 price range, like it's unbelievable. So I really had to cut out a lot of bottles that I absolutely love. That being said, I still ended up with a number of honorable mention bottles. So we're gonna kick this list off with some honorable mentions. Let's do it. First up, we have Starlight, Carl T. Huber's Double Oaked. So Starlight Distillery, sometimes known as that other distillery in Indiana. This is one of my favorite Double Oakeds on the market, honestly. I absolutely love Starlight. I like a lot of their finished bourbons, but the Double Oaked for me just kind of hits the mark. This one is 6 years old, 106.5 proof, and I think it is an excellent bottle for the price. So I think this bottle is around the top of the price point, around $75, but man, this thing is great. Wow. You just get some barrel char and some really nice dark cherry notes. I'm not gonna try every bottle, but I did wanna have a pour of this one. Let's keep it moving. All right, our next honorable mention also comes from the great state of Indiana by way of Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm talking about Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered. What a gorgeous bottle this is. Dude, they really nailed the glass here. This thing is pretty. So Smoke Wagon obviously sources their whiskey from MGP. It is aged and bottled in Las Vegas, and they put out some excellent whiskey. This is around that $70, $75 price point. It's gotten very easy to find. This bottle used to be hard to find like a year or two ago, but they're putting out a lot more whiskey, and I'm glad because I think it's great. So second honorable mention, Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered. Next up, we have Russell's Reserve Single Barrel. Now, I absolutely love Wild Turkey. This one kind of killed me not to put in the actual top 10. I had so many great bottles, I had to leave it as an honorable mention. These are roughly 8 years old, bottled at 110 proof. Delicious, delicious bourbon for about $65. You can also find a lot of Russell's barrel picks that come in a little bit older, also 110 proof, but a lot of their barrel picks are like 9 to 10 years old. So if you can find one of those for a little bit more than that $65 price point, I highly recommend those as well. All right, let's keep it moving. Next up, we have Knob Creek Single Barrel. Staying on the single barrel bus here. So Knob Creek, 9 years, single barrel, 120 proof. This is like $59.99. This thing is a steal. I absolutely love Knob Creek. Little spoiler alert. One bottle I do not have on the list that is from Jim Beam is the Baker's 7. For me, the Baker's 7 is also $59.99, 7 to 8 years old, 107 proof. I don't understand. For my money, this bottle is so much better than the Baker's. I don't know why they're priced the same. I don't understand it. I'm not gonna pretend to understand it, but whatever, man. For me, the Knob Creek Single Barrel is really hard to beat for the price. Moving on. Our next honorable mention comes in at $59.99. Four Roses Small Batch Select. So this is another bottle I absolutely love. I'm a huge fan of Four Roses. I love their single barrel. I love the Small Batch Select. Small Batch Select is a little bit higher proof. This is 104 proof. Their single barrel is 100 proof. This is a blend of 6 of their recipes. Four Roses has 2 different mash bills and 5 different yeast strains. So that's 10 different recipes. 6 of those recipes are in this bottle. They blend really well together. This thing is just delicious. All right, so I got 2 more honorable mentions and then we will get into the top 10. Second to last, we have Old Forester 1910. So Old Forester 1910 is an excellent double oaked whiskey. Has an amazing mouthfeel. It's just so thick, so creamy. A ton of flavor. You really get some barrel influence on this one. I think this is about $55. Comes in at 93 proof, so a little bit lower than most of the other bottles so far, but it really packs some nice flavor. All right, and our last honorable mention, this one kind of killed me to leave off the list as well. Woodford Double Oaked. So another double oaked whiskey. This thing is just so delicious. It's just so cherry, so vanilla. The second barrel is super toasted, so you get a lot of those toasted vanilla and cherry flavors. This one's 90.4 proof, comes in about $65, but you can never go wrong with a Woodford Double Oaked. All right, guys, that is it for the honorable mentions. We are getting into the top 10. So this is the official top 10. I don't know why I say official. There's nothing official about this. These are just my 10 favorites today. I'd say on any given day, the order of these bottles might change considerably, and maybe a handful of them I might swap out with bottles that were not on the list. I don't know, man. That's my disclaimer. Who cares? All right, guys. Number 10, coming in at number 10, we have Maker's Mark 46 cask strength. So this is actually a finished bourbon. Some people might say not technically a bourbon because of the TTB laws and regulations. But yes, technically Maker's 46 is a finished bourbon, but it is delicious. So this is Maker's Mark cask strength that they finished with French oak staves. Gives it some really nice darker notes, some darker cherry, some darker chocolate. Just a really, really interesting bourbon for the price. This comes in around $65, around 110 proof. This one is 110.1, and just one of my favorite bottles to sip on. Next up, number 9, we have Remus Highest Rye. So I really wanted to put an MGP bottle on here. Actually, I'm gonna have a sip of this one. So I really wanted to put an MGP bottle on here, and I was very close to putting Penelope. But for me, the Penelopes in this under $80 price point, they're very good. I just have bottles that I like more than the Penelopes. But I think this Remus Highest Rye was a huge hit. It's very interesting. It is 51% corn, 39% rye, and 10% malted rye. So between the rye and the malted rye, you have about 49%, not about 49%, you have 49% of rye in here, which is the maximum amount of rye you can have legally in a bourbon. Hence the name Remus Highest Rye. So this is like $59.99, aged about 6 years. And this thing is super interesting. You get a lot of rye spice on the nose, a lot of that cherry. I get a cherry cola note a lot of the time from high rye bourbons that I absolutely love. Yeah, it's so cool. It hits your tongue on the front like a bourbon, and then it finishes like a rye. Just a super interesting bourbon for a great price. So number 9, Remus Highest Rye. Number 8. So coming in at number 8, we have Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Barrel Proof. So this is a small 3.75 milliliter. The 750 milliliter bottle typically costs around $70. I only have the little one right now. Here. 750 milliliter bottle looks like this. This is the rye. This is also phenomenal, but really both of these are excellent bottles for the price. I know Jack Daniel's not technically a bourbon. It is a Tennessee whiskey, which is basically a bourbon that was made in Tennessee and underwent the charcoal mellowing process before it goes in the barrel. But for the purposes of this conversation, we're gonna consider it a bourbon. Considering the fact that if you were watching them make Tennessee whiskey, you wouldn't be able to tell that they weren't making bourbon. The process is the same. But regardless, Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Barrel Proof, excellent whiskey for the price, coming in at number 8. That rye out of here. Coming in at number 7, we have Old Forester 1920. So Old Forester 1920, also a Brown-Forman product, just like the Jack Daniel's. I feel like the 1920 is a very sophisticated bourbon. Like it has a lot of flavor, a lot of darker notes, like dark chocolates, dark cherries. You get a little bit of that Brown-Forman banana on here. Not as much as in the 1910, but you do get a little bit on the 1920. This typically costs around $60. Comes in at 115 proof, but this bottle is one of the more popular available bottles that's out there. Everybody loves 1920, very deserving for a spot on this list. So Old Forester 1920, number 7. All right, I'm really struggling on the order for the top 6, but this is my list, so who cares? All these bottles are good, okay? So don't hold any of them against me. Coming in at number 6, we have Henry McKenna 10-year. So this is a delicious 10-year-old bottled in bond bourbon. Used to be available for like 30, 40 bucks. Then it won World's Best Whiskey 2 years in a row, and now it's hard to find, and they jacked up the price. So this is like $60, I think, MSRP. It can be a little bit tricky to find at that $59.99 price point. I do see it regularly for like $70, $80. So if you're willing to pay that much, it should be pretty easy to find one. But this is just an absolutely delicious bourbon for the price. I would personally much rather drink this than Eagle Rare, although it is a little bit more expensive. I'm gonna pour a little bit of this one as well. And you just get so much beautiful oak on the nose. What an excellent nose. Absolutely delicious. Now this is a single barrel, meaning some barrels will be better than others. This one is phenomenal. To be honest, I haven't really had a bad one, but I have heard that they're out there. So I would encourage you to be somewhat cautious. Try not to overpay for it. But if you can find a McKenna for $60, I would absolutely buy one. All right, let's get into the top 5. Top 5. Number 5, we have one of my favorite bottles. It is absolutely delicious, Pursuit United. So Pursuit United is made by Kenny and Ryan at the Bourbon Pursuit podcast. These guys are excellent at blending whiskey. This is 108 proof. So this is a blend of different mash bills. Some of them are traditional bourbon mash bills. Some of them are wheated bourbon mash bills. So this one is actually a 4-grain, absolutely delicious bourbon for about $65. This is really hard to beat. And I have to say, anything from Pursuit United is delicious. So this batch is 8 CD, and I have to be honest, I really haven't had any bad bottles from Pursuit United. So Kenny and Ryan, keep up the good work. Number 5. All right, moving on. Number 4. So coming in at number 4, we have Barrel Bourbon. So this one is batch 35. Here, I'm gonna have a sip of this one as well. So Barrel Bourbon is also excellent at blending whiskey. This one has a 6-year age statement. However, there is older whiskey in here. So even though it's age stated at 6 years, I think there's 7, 8, 9, even a little bit of 13-year-old whiskey in this blend. Personally, I think all of the barrel batches are really good. This one I have to say is super interesting. Sipping this barrel is kind of like an adventure. That sounds stupid, but one of the things I like about this particular batch of the Barrel Bourbon, it kind of noses like a bourbon, but then when you drink it, it's spicy like a rye. It's just a really, really interesting bottle. So this one comes in at 117.5 proof. I do see this as high as like $80, sometimes even higher. But if you look, a lot of places have this for like $69.99. And for $69.99, I think it is an excellent deal. It's an excellent bourbon and very deserving of the number 4 spot on this list. All right, guys, top 3. Man, that barrel is so good. All right, guys, number 3. Coming in at number 3, we have, I think, one of the best values in whiskey out there, Knob Creek 12-year. So this Knob Creek 12-year comes in at like $69.99, but honestly, I think I bought this bottle on sale for like $50. You will often see it on sale for like $55, $60, but even for $70, it's a 12-year-old bourbon for $70. Come on, man, that's crazy. The general rule of thumb is that a bottle is a good deal if they charge you roughly $10 per year it spends in the barrel. On this one, they're basically charging you $5 for every year it spent in the barrel. That's ridiculous. Come on, dude, $5? But anyway, I'm a big fan of Knob Creek, and this 12-year-old is no exception. It is 100 proof. I do often wish that they put out like one of their 120 proof single barrels at 12 years old. Some of the Knob Creek barrel picks do get to that like 12-year age mark. But just to have a shelf product that's 12 years old for $69.99, I think that's amazing. I just think this has to be one of the best values that has ever existed in the bourbon world. I gotta have a sip of this one. Nice pop. That was a fresh crack, actually. Oh my God, the oak. I cannot explain how much I love the smell of like sweet oak on a bourbon, like a well-aged bourbon. It makes me want to giggle like an 8-year-old girl, I swear to God. So good. All right, guys, we're down to the top two. The top two bourbons under $80, and I'm gonna present them together because these two bottles kind of go together. You'll see why in a second. But the top two bourbons under $80, Larceny Barrel Proof and Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So these two bottles, obviously from Heaven Hill. I know the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof has been taking some heat because they dropped their 12-year-old age statement, and this most recent batch that they put out, A124, this comes in at 10 years and 9 months old. So a year and change younger than their previous 12-year age statement. But this thing is still an amazing deal. I just picked this up for 75 bucks, 119 proof, a little bit lower than the previous Elijah Craig barrel proof batches, but barrel proof 10-plus-year-old bourbon for $75. Come on, nobody else is doing that, seriously. Nobody else is doing that. And then Larceny Barrel Proof. Larceny Barrel Proof is on a hot streak. They've been putting out phenomenal batches left and right for like the past year and a half. Absolutely love what they're doing with the Larceny. This is the A124 batch, comes in at 124.2 proof. And I think this is around $65. So a little bit cheaper than the Elijah Craig. A little bit younger too. These are believed to be around 6 to 8 years old. Just an incredibly delicious bottle from Heaven Hill for an amazing price. You really can't go wrong with any of the Larceny barrel proofs or the Elijah Craig barrel proofs, which is why these two round out the top of the list. Even though the Elijah Craig has taken a lot of flack, we have to remember this is still an amazing bottle for the price. I mean, this is the only barrel-proof bourbon on this list that is over 10 years old. There is literally nothing else in the price point that is nearly as old as this. All right, guys, well, I'm running out of stuff to say. But anyway, we have the Larceny and the Elijah Craig coming in at number 2 and number 1. That is all I've got for today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it and you haven't seen my top 10 bourbons under $50 video, I'll put the link up here somewhere. Go ahead and check it out, you might like it. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time on Average Joe's Whiskey. Good night.